Drinking only affects me and no one else. And this is absolutely the biggest myth of all. If you have an alcoholic in your family and they say something like that, I'm only hurting myself. They're literally out of their mind. And I have to explain because drinking only affects me and no one else. Alcoholism, especially, is destructive for families. And this is fairly obvious to anybody who's lived this type of lifestyle, but more than 10% of the children in the US live and must deal with a parent who is alcohol dependent. 10% of children have to deal with this malady. Children can experience abuse and neglect as a parent becomes unaware of their actions. Spouses can experience mental, physical, and financial anguish. If you followed me, you understand my little period the last 20 years. In general, alcoholism can place a financial strain on families, causing conflict and stress, to say it mildly. This type of dysfunctional behavior can create a plethora of generational problems. In other words, you can pass it on to your children, and your children can pass it on to your children. You're basically letting the buck be passed on because children do children don't do what we say, they do what we do. So they're going to mimic what your parents do in a large part of the situations. Alcohol can create future alcoholics, and that's exactly what happens. So let's continue this conversation. Alcohol only affects me. Okay, well, what about the 13 to 14,000 people a year that die on our freeways because of a drunk driver? Men, women, and children. Alcohol only affects me. I'm only hurting myself. What about the $400 billion that it costs in the United States for lack of productivity, healthcare costs, criminal activities? And we could go on and on and on. The costs are staggering what alcohol does to the population. And that's just the beginning. And occasionally I'll get a comment like, why don't you just leave me alone? YOLO. You only live once. Let me drink in peace. I'm not bothering anybody. If I want to die my way, I'll die my way. Okay, this kind of mentality, this drunken mindset, is just absurd. It's somebody who's really caught up into an addiction. I wouldn't wish it upon anybody. To die from alcoholism is not living. Dying from alcohol use disorder is not a life anybody would want to have. So YOLO, you only live once. Well, dying from alcohol is not living at all. I hope you understand that. And this video is really about the general attitude that a lot of alcoholics have. In other words, they need to take an accountability and a culpability for their mental health disease, and nobody can force that upon them. They have to come to that conclusion. And as a human being, it's a very difficult conclusion to take, especially if you have become addicted to alcohol or any other kind of drug. It's a very difficult position to be in and to get out of that. So it's going to take help from other people, but you have to be able to surrender to the fact that you cannot do it on your own. It's not about willpower. It's about reaching out. You got to go to therapy. You got to have counseling. You need to have an accountability partner. And you have to understand the chemical reactions and the physical reality that the alcohol's wreaking havoc on your body, and you have to accept that, and you have to have some kind of research. If you weigh 500 pounds, you have an eating disorder. It's your responsibility to do something about it. You have to have less calorie intake. You need to move. Okay, if you have diabetes, you have to worry about your diet and your weight. If you have heart disease, maybe you shouldn't be smoking and maybe you need to lose weight. Every disease, there has to be an accountability, and you have to make it your priority in your life. You have to want to be around. So pawning it off on anybody else, or this deflection of, I'm not bothering anybody else, I'm only bothering myself. Well, there's nobody alive today that doesn't have a mother, okay, or a family. So yeah, you're going to be bothering them, not to mention any other relationships in your life. So this nonsense of it only affects me and no one else, that needs to be hammered into the ground as just nothing more than a deflectionary statement and another form of gaslighting. And I hope that makes sense. And again, I go live Monday through Friday right around 6 o'clock Pacific Standard Time, 9 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. We also have the Facebook group. Link is in the bio, in the link tree. It's called There's an Alcoholic in the Family. It's a good place, it's a good safe place for alcoholics and family members to really bond with other people who are going through the same type of situation. And when you're ready to work with me, set up a breakthrough call. Link is again in the bio. It takes about 45 minutes or so. We do a deep dive into what's going on with you and your family, and then we go over the course. The call is free. The course is definitely not, but I'm looking for people who want to change their lives and the lives of their family. And again, thanks so much for listening.